What's up, man?
I love that background.
Yeah, today's my mother's birthday. So I actually had to put on pants. You know that with my OCD, those things.
They're driving
you.
You
It's driving. I love that you know me enough to know that what. At first, I was like, yeah, I'd just answer any questions, but I didn't know they were this deep.
I want to go deep, man. No, you can go back to there every
now and then. What if people want to see me
then.
at the Instagram? What if they...
Well, that's fine, but for the video...
I don't want to ignore the Instagram.
You can go back to there every now and then, but
Why are we always fighting, Brionne? Come on.
Well, it's because we have passionate views.
So you're telling me to look at you?
If I show you this video later and I don't tell you now, you'll be like, what the fuck, Brionne? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you tell me?
I don't talk like that. I would never say anything. I don't swear anymore.
Oh my God.
I stopped swearing and I stopped shaving.
Oh, that's
in
right.
solidarity of the workers that are keeping us alive right now. Hospital workers, grocery workers, postal service, any kind of delivery. So, pray for them, because if it wasn't for them, we would be in even more trouble than now. Yeah. So it's 2004 and I was in an acting studio. I feel like I've told this story before. So anyway, and Brionne is in class as well. 2005, after I'd known him for a few months, he started doing these monologues in class that he was doing. Like at one time he was Tennessee Williams. He was actually Tennessee Williams. And then another time he was other characters and all that stuff. So I approached him after class one day and I was like, Brionne, what are you doing? What's going on? What's the plan? Are you writing these monologues or what are you doing? And he explained to me that he wanted to put together a one-man show based on Tennessee Williams characters from Tennessee Williams. Now, of course, I was already a big Marlon Brando fan, so I didn't know everything, but I knew Stanley Kowalski. I knew, of course, Blanche Dubois, both from Streetcar Named Desire. So I was like, all right, Tennessee Williams. We would watch a bunch of scenes in class, popular scenes in class, and I was like, all right, okay. So at the time I was doing a lot of theater and I really loved directing. So I said, all right. And I also loved writing. So I was like, so do you have a script yet? He said, yeah, I'm working on it, showcasing it, working it out. And I said, do you have a director yet? And he was like, no, why do you
Remember,
ask?
you were right over my shoulder. You were right here. I was talking to somebody else and then you were like, Brionne, you got a director?
Yeah, because I was like, I want to direct, and he inspired me in class. And anytime you get inspired, like artistically, it's a really cool thing. I love directing, particularly directing theater. So I was like, let me throw my hat in this ring here. And he was like, no, I don't know. I think Brionne had a crush on me at the time. So he was like very flustered just because I was like speaking to him. He was like,
You might have been a kind of a crush. I think I had a bigger crush on Christina.
And
I definitely had a crush on Dean West.
Yeah.
And I definitely had a crush on Chris Neville, but then I got to know Chris Neville and I just loved him, and
the crush went away. Yeah, that he's got that effect on people. So anyway, I'm just teasing Brionne. That being said, he turned to me and he was like, I'm sure you were surprised that I asked you that question. You knew why, but I'm sure you're surprised because it wasn't like we were friends in class that we hung out or anything like that. We were just classmates at the time. So how did you take that question?
Man, it was, when you are passionate about something and you just put yourself into it and you take the step, everything begins to move around to generate the success of what you're passionate about. And that moment that you came up to me and said, hey, you got a director for this. I mean, I was just working through characters, right? I was just rewriting stuff for the show, working through characters. And I said, no, you want to do it? And you said, hell yeah. And then I said, great, now all we need is a composer. And that's when Ross Levinson came in. He was like right behind you. And he goes, I'll compose it. And this all started, can I just say, this all started at the very beginning of my entrance into class. And it was when I saw Christina and I said, hey, do you know who Ana Magnani is? And she goes, oh my God. And I said, I want to do Valentine Xavier, Orpheus Descending. And she goes, I love that play. And that was set in motion when I was 19 and I read the play the first time. And then fast forward 5-6 years later, I walk in, Christina's there, and it just, bam. And so diving into Valentine Xavier and Orpheus Descending was really the seed planted, right? And then, you know, my dad got cancer, and then, you know, a very close person in my life was had attempted suicide, and all of these things were moving around in my life. And these characters, what I was acknowledging in my character work, in my bios, is these characters were carrying me through these life experiences and creating healing and creating a guidance in a way. And I dove into these characters wondering why I loved them so much. And ultimately it was the writer that I loved so much, right? It was Tennessee Williams.
Yeah,
and that's where you showed up and Ross showed up. And fast forward, it took us, what, 1.5 years to you and I writing back and forth. And
we didn't actually put it up until maybe like towards the end of 2006. So we were working on it for about a 1.5 years before we actually put it up. And we put it up in my theater company's theater 68
Ronnie
in
Marmo.
Hollywood. Yeah, Ronnie Mai called Ronnie. I was like, Ronnie, look at, I'm working on a one-man show that I'm directing and producing, and we put it all together. Danny Sistone at the time built an amazing set for us, and we literally had everything that we wanted and needed and requested, and we made history. I mean, at least my history.
Right.
My life.
And I'll never forget. So there's two things on this. One that we mentioned before, about believing in something and taking a risk and taking a chance and putting it out there and trusting that the universe is going to come in and everything's going to be put into motion. When you are leading with a vision, when you're leading with passion, then suddenly the infantry comes in, right? When we start questioning ourselves and questioning our vision, then people aren't going to have faith in you. And then that's when Kimberly Negretti, she came in and we had our first meeting at Theater 68. And everybody was sitting around and she had my script, right? She had A Noble Exile laid out with all of these lighting notes. And I thought, she's read my script?
Just that alone.
She's read it and she's taken this kind of notes. And I looked at you and I looked at Danny Sistone and I looked at like 5 or 6 people that were on board to make this thing happen.
Ross was doing the music at the time. I was already giving him notes on different violin moments of violin sat into his moods, and he was changing the moods with his violins and his music, and everything was coming together. But I think, piggyback off what you're saying, you're absolutely right. It started with your passion and you inspired all these people. It's
when you're clear on a vision, you know, and something else that I really appreciated about our working relationship, and this is big because this is leadership, and was when we were going through the script. I mean, it was forever long initially, right? We just wrote. And then you and I would read through it and we would have these arguing sessions, right? And whoever won the argument on whether or not it stayed in would keep it, or because I usually wanted to keep everything in. Thank God for you, because we'd still be doing the show. We'd still be in the first act.
Well, okay. The argument sessions were like, Brionne, if you say this again, I'm going to choke you to death. And that was always my argument. But then sometimes you just annoyed me so much, I'm like, fine. It's like, so those like, it became some kind of like weird marriage, if you will. It's like, but let me tell you something. The reason why, you know, you say arguments, that sounds like a fight, like we were butting heads, but we really weren't. They were artistic arguments, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think because we were on the same page and we kind of wanted the same thing, to show the world something that they've never seen before. I think the arguments were very, very short-lived. You know, it's like, okay, no, you're right.
Anthony said to me, "Hey, Brionne, like, what color do you want this duvet? Like, or this, the vanity, right?"
There's no way I said duvet. There's no way I said that. I don't even know what that word means.
Well, duvet isn't. I misspoke. Duvet is something you cover.
Yeah, if you're gonna quote me, don't use a word that you would use. Use a word that I would use.
The cabinet thingy.
Thank you. There you
go. So you said, and it's a vanity that's up on the fourth wall, right? And you said, what color do you want to color it? I'm like, I don't know, like a blue or purple, or like an indigo. And you said, you can indigo fuck yourself. And so now now I love it. And now when you're in a place of we're messing around with each other or whatever, I just go indigo.
Yeah, and that's like code for go F yourself. No,
yeah.
All right, that's good. No, that was one of my favorite moments too. That was one of those moments that we're talking about where I'm like, Brionne, enough, man. Nobody even knows what that is. That's not a color. What do you want? I'm talking like, what's a color? Blue, green, red. What is this? That's it. Give me a color, man. But you did get what you wanted, right?
Oh man, and I tell you what, initially, the bathtub, the Blanche Dubois' bathtub was supposed to, the thing was supposed to open, and bathtub and dry ice was supposed to, and candles. Like, that was the initial idea, right? And
do you have video of this? Do you have like clips that you could show of that?
I have the trailer up, and then I have the full show. Steve Raimundo.
It would be cool, like if later on you edit this and then you could like show the clip as you're describing it.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna show those images.
So you're way ahead of me. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm just wasting. Says you're gonna have to cut that part out where I said that.
I don't know. We'll see. So then Danny Sistone came in. He goes, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that necessarily, and it might. But look, what about this idea? And so this whole wall, this whole big ass wall, opens up, and there's the dress, and then there's the wig, and this light is on it, and then I become Blanche Dubois. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna honor your commitment to not cussing, because I'm already honoring your not shaving, and for the purposes, mine's just laziness.
It's cool. It's cool to not. It's cool to not. Yeah, it's cool to not swear, man. It is. It's cool, especially when it's a legitimate sacrifice. You know. Like it is with me. I'm like, wow. I'm like, wow. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. So that's beautiful. And Anthony, I'm so grateful. I mean, that night, 120 people in the audience. Ronnie Marmo was so gracious. We had Dom DeLuise there. We had Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna. They hosted the event. We raised a bunch of money. And then my dad was there, and he was third row in the audience. And this story, and I'm not going to go into this, but he was third row in the audience, and afterwards his face was whitewashed. And he came up to me. And guys, when you're working with vision and moving through heart and trust, my dad came up to me after that show at the dinner afterwards, and he said, maybe 10 people in the world can do what you just did. Maybe 10 people. And whether that's true or not, and honestly, nobody in the world could do what I just did because it was unique to my experience, right?
100%.
And in his eyes, 10 people in the world maybe could do a concept like that. That meant the world because he understood me. He got me. He and the effect that I had not only on him, but my family and my friends that came out, and your family, and our relationship, just that has withstood the time, because of a vision, because of an artistic project, the lives that we save in that experience and influence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I can't tell you how great it was to meet your father and spend time with your father. And he passed away shortly thereafter. And it was, you're right. Like these are memories, a perfect example of a memory that will span the test of time.
Yeah. Following May.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he got to see it, and then, oh, anyway, I'll be vulnerable around that next time. Okay. So yeah, and that experience right there, you know, we may not be blood brothers, but we did share some blood, so, and
No
tears.
doubt.
And just having that working relationship, that mutual respect for one another, and having a unified vision in mind, that's it. And ego can't be brought into that, a bigger vision than ourselves. And so we had stumbling blocks, we had, you know, a lot of things going on that were obstacles in our way, and we just kept moving forward with the vision, thus HIPPO, right?
I started just like HIPPO life as just a mantra, HIPPO, you know what I mean? Humanity, inspiration, preparation, perseverance, originality. And it started in those days where I was like, you know, if you don't keep on moving forward, setting your goal and moving forward, then you're going to really like go off track. And I was just seeing so many actors just without a clear vision, not wanting, like thinking that they want something, but they really don't, you know what I mean? And they weren't
Mm-hmm.
real artists, and they would just get off track. And then all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. I started thinking, you know, what kind of mentality would it take for you to succeed in arguably the most difficult industry in the world, the entertainment industry? You know, now all of a sudden we're in Hollywood, the mecca of the industry, and how are we going, such small fish in a giant ocean? How are we going to succeed? And it became clear to me just to set goals and have tunnel vision towards your goal. And can I tell the story real quick about why HIPPO?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
basically, um, I was in a children's. I was buying, like, I had to buy a toy or something for, I believe it was my niece at the time, and we went into a toy store and I wanted to buy a book. So I'm looking around in children's books, and I saw this one book. It was about hippopotamuses, and I'm reading it. It's really cool. It's one of those ones that has pictures and maybe like one or two words underneath them for every page. You know, a book that's right up my alley that I could read. And that was a joke, Brionne. You could have laughed. I mean, when you don't laugh, you make it sound like I was serious. All right. All right, now you're overdoing it. Okay, here we go. So, and one of the lines were, a hippo uh, isn't designed to move backwards because of, you know, their body structure. Nothing like hunts a hippo. So when they set a goal, whether it be like they're thirsty and there's water over there, they're hungry, there's food over there, or whatever, um, they don't have the mentality that they're that something's going to stop them from moving forward. And they're so big in stature that they just move forward at a steady pace until they reach their goal. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's my mantra. That's where we're going. Keep moving forward, steady pace. And you know, the metaphor gets really, really deep at that point. It's like, okay, I can't move backwards. That means I can't live in the past. I can't move side to side. That means I'm not going to get distracted by things that are in my life that are going to stop me from moving forward. And if something's in my way, I got to stomp on it. I got to get rid of it. If I'm in a bad relationship, or if I have something going on in my life that is stopping me from moving forward, I have to get rid of it. And that kind of mentality, that's when I started teaching shortly after that. And I was using that kind of mentality to teach my students. And it just caught on because everyone could identify with that.
Let's just expand this out to humanity, right? No matter what your job is, no matter what it is that you do, from being a nurse right now to a doctor to a firefighter to, you know, whoever it is that you are, there's a purpose for you, and you know your truth. You know your truth inside, and we can look outside of ourselves in religion or in other people, advisors or whatever, or our political figures, our president, like whoever it is, to blame. But inside of us is our truth, our purpose, our vision, And once we connect with that and don't allow any of that other stuff to get in the way and distract us, this is our past. And the past is what makes us unique, right? If we're talking about the Maslow's pyramid, the past is what makes us unique. We own it, we admit it, it's neutral, it builds us, it builds character. And then we just keep moving with that uniqueness into our future. And there's gonna be roadblocks. Who is in your life that is elevating you? Who is in your life that is holding you back? You know, what situations, whether it be a job or career or a relationship or even your environment, if those are not compelling you forward and elevating you to your greater cause, then you gotta move them aside.
So let the wind from your experiences push you forward. You don't have to look at them. You don't have to turn around. They're there. You know that they're there. You don't have to keep on harping on them. You don't have to keep on talking about them and complaining about them. It's like wind. You don't see wind, but you feel wind. And your memories in your past and the experiences that you had in your life is just like the wind. You feel it. It's something to be felt, not something to be seen. It's not something to be hopped on. It's something that could propel you. And, think of your memories in your past and your experiences as wind behind you.
You were highly effective and beneficial in my life through a really, really hard time, right? You got to meet my dad. I got to meet your mom. One of my favorite pictures is of us cutting that cake. And
today's my mother's birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Janet Gilardi. Happy birthday, Janet Gilardi.
Wow. Speaking of transcendent moments, let's dive right in. Let's go. You ready?
Am I ready for what?
To transcendent moments, to dive in. So yeah, a moment, time that really shifted your,
man, I'm gonna have to say, the moment that is really got me out here, the year 2000. I know it was winter time. My friend Michael and Michael Furcano, I think that he's actually
he was on here,
on Instagram. Yeah. We were talking about wanting to move to California for years, man, years. And it was always like, well, I'm busy, I'm working. I have this new job. I was a contractor at the time back in Boston. I was like, I have this job. I can't go now. And, it's like at the end of the day, it's all fear and just insecurities and all that stuff. And it was winter 2000. And I'm not going to mention any names, but somebody very, very close to me tried to take their own life. And when I say close to me, I mean someone that would affects my life on a daily basis. And I remember being in the hospital. I had to go and see them. And I was looking out the window, and it's like, there was just like an amazing vision of I could see the snow falling outside the window, but I could also see my reflection in the window. And that was the moment that I said, this is it. If life comes down to this, and it's like, it could change so quickly, then in a good way or a bad way or whatever. In that case, it was a very, very bad thing that was happening, or at least it seemed like it was a bad thing at the time. I made up my mind that these dreams that I have and these goals that I have, I mean, the dreams have to become goals instead of just staying dreams. And I realized that before that moment, I was never going to go. I was never leaving. And I said to myself, all right, this is it. This is the moment. And within the next few weeks, I sold my entire business, all my tools and everything that I had, except my truck, and put everything I had in garbage bags and threw them in the back of my truck. And I drove to LA, and I was here ever since. But I would just say that standing there, looking at my reflection, the snow falling down in the background, and me making up my mind that if I don't do this now, I'm simply never going to do this. And if I never do this, then I will never truly be happy in my whole life. Even if it doesn't work out, even if I'm only there for a few months, at least I could always live with the fact that I tried to do something that I always wanted to do. And it was, at the time, it was a horrible, horrible, horrible moment. Probably one of the worst days of my life. But looking back now, the person that I was talking about, they are okay and still here to this day. And I'm still in Los Angeles doing what I love to this day. So it's like kind of the thing that you're talking about, Brionne, where it's like, all right, things that seem bad at the time are not always bad, and vice versa. So you have to be careful of things, decisions you make, and moments that really create a domino effect in your life, you know, and it really is up to you which direction the dominoes fall. You are more in control of the way the dominoes fall in your life than you think. And I would say that that's probably the biggest moment in my life.
And think of the people, and just, if we're experiencing gratitude, think of the people that, had you not followed your vision, had you not follow, I mean, I'm sure something else might have, and you would have affected other people, but because you followed your heart, you followed your passion, and because you are vulnerable, because you admit fault, you admit, you know,
Fear.
yeah, yeah, and you followed that. The amount of people that have been affected on a positive, in a positive way, you have no idea. You have no idea to the degree in which the world has transformed because of you and your leadership and your passion and your vulnerability. And that's what I'm talking about, man. It's like,
Yeah.
are we going to live in that fear? I mean, every day you should be afraid. Absolutely. Fear is not something that, like, if you're not afraid, then you're not living.
It's how you
And
react to the fear. It's how
exactly.
you react to the fear is what's important, and that's life changing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I have so much gratitude for you, and thank you for being an example of vulnerability. It's a beautiful story. Um,
Yeah, telling that story. I haven't told that story in a long time, and even just telling it right now, it's like it almost seems like it's like somebody else's memory. I actually have to like remind myself sometimes that no, that's your memory, and that's why you're here. And
mm,
you know, a lot of times we have to when we overcome a fear, it just seems so mystical sometimes that you have to remind yourself that no, that's real, and it's reality, and it happened, and we had we have these very important lessons that we bring forward after moments like that, you know.
and you touched on something earlier that's a principle that I live by, and that is, responsibility. And we do have more control than most often we allow ourselves to, right? And
We do.
and sometimes it's really difficult to go, I am responsible. I mean, it's crazy, and a lot of people kind of reject this notion, but you know to look and see where something happens and kind of on a global scale, and you be in some sort of responsibility around that, or you be responsible for your life. If a contract, you got screwed on a contract, or like, where are you responsible? And if you are responsible, then you get to grow from it, right? You get to discover where, if let's just take COVID for example. This detract, a lot of people don't want to explore this, but if I have a responsibility around COVID-19, then I look at it from a place of, where am I in my life not healthy? Where am I in my life not contributing to the greater good? Where am I greedy? Where am I jealous? Where am I not participating in awareness and prevention of something, or concerned for the better, for humanity? Then I get to be responsible for that, and I'm not spending my time blaming other people. Instead, I'm shifting my way of existing, so that I go out and I become connected, I become generous, I become what's missing in the world, right? And if we sit around and we blame our president for not acting in time, we sit around and blame whoever, then we're not part of the solution. And the
I
only
agree.
way to do that is by you being responsible. And imagine if every single person on the face of the planet was responsible and generous, then abundance would flow. We wouldn't have hunger. You know, we wouldn't have a lack of education. We wouldn't have kids being like, when we can generate and be source for that kind of, you know, fervor in the world and generosity, then we can shift the narrative. So I appreciate that, and you being the example of vulnerability and truth to your vision and passion. What's your mission statement? Like personal mission statement, not just with the studio, but do you have? I mean, they might be the same, but
creating a forum that that emphasizes empathy, being empathetic towards other human beings. Now, when I talk about that, if I'm teaching acting in my studio, I always say that, you know, you have to empathize with your character. In other words, don't judge your character and justify their behavior, no matter what the situation is. But that transcends acting and storytelling. That really is something that we could bring forward in our own lives and listen to. This is my definition of empathy. Because I'm a storyteller and I teach storytelling, empathy to me is really about listening and actually feeling the other person's humanity. So if somebody tells me their story and they are completely different than me, different color, different gender, different sexual orientation, age, from a different, speak a different language, different religious background, and they tell me a story and I truly just simply listen to them and allow myself to feel something that they feel. That to me is the definition of empathy. And, you know, it comes from like building a character from scratch and finding the humanity in the character, but it transcends that, like I say, to life. And I think that once you realize that people are not different, and at the core of what they are is humanity, and I'm a human being and you're a human being, just because you have a different political view or a different religious view, we're not different, we're the same. Inside, we're the same. And I think that's my overall mission statement with both my studio and with my life. Everybody that I mentor, everybody that I teach and coach, it always comes down to that. And it's a very special thing. And I say, you know, I know I get really, really deep and passionate about this, but the problem with this world is a lack of empathy, period. You know, even within this own country, the political nature of this country, how the two sides are so far apart and they're not listening to each other. The second I say I'm this and you're this, you stop listening. And it's like, all right, maybe they have a good point, but I'll never hear it because I'm not listening to you. So how could we ever get better and get along and reach an agreement if we're not listening? Same thing with religion. I mean, more people in the history of humanity have died by the name of God or their God or whatever for religious reasons than any disease that ever existed in humanity. And people don't understand that. Wars have been fought for thousands of years, still going on today because of just simple religious disagreements. Where, no, this is my God, I follow this God, you follow this God, we need to be enemies because of that. Meanwhile, you don't even listen to why I follow this God and why you follow this God and why I believe in this and why. And I think that is, it's the only way to heal the world, to heal humanity. Listen, the world and the planet will heal itself. We're seeing this already. It's been, what, 3 weeks or whatever, in America at least. And if you turn it globally, it's been, what, a couple of months here. And the planet's doing just fine. The animals are just fine. The planet's just fine. The climate is just fine. It's the people.
Right. It's our contribution in a negative way that
Exactly.
And if we're not,
that's changing too.
Yeah. If we're, yeah, I love it. And Brene Brown does a really good job of explaining a perspective of empathy that I really appreciate. And it's similar. And I agree 100%, is that our empathy is a matter of our internal, our emotional experience is relative to the emotional experience of someone else. It might not be that
Exactly.
you know, I've lost a father, but I've never lost a brother, right? So someone's loss of a brother is the emotional experience is the same as me having lost my dad. You know,
Pain is pain. Pain
pain
is
is
pain.
pain,
Yeah,
and
my worst pain is exactly the same as your worst pain. The key word in that sentence is worse.
yeah,
It's this is my worst pain, and this is how I feel. To simplify empathy, right there.
yeah,
Too many people just say, "Well, my pain is worse," or "I'm right and you're wrong," and that is the problem. They
yeah.
stop listening.
and
That,
and we get away from these labels, and I think the labels are what, you know, oh, you're a Democrat, so I'm right away gonna reject anything that
exactly.
you
That's
have.
it. You
Or
don't even hear one word after that.
yeah,
You believe in this God? Shut off. You believe
yeah,
in this. You have this
yeah,
political view? Shut off.
yeah,
Sexual orientation? Shut off. And immediately once the labels are there, those labels are so powerful that it just clogs our ears and we stop listening. We stop hearing it. That's the problem.
yeah. Christina Callego was on here. She's the producer for Embrace the Serpent and Birds of Passage,
Oh,
and
cool, cool.
she, you know, I will say that when I'm committed to creating narrative and as a storyteller, and having a vision that I'm not sure exactly, you know, I'm living in a vision of a feeling. You know, I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to experience other cultures, and I wanted to experience an observing position of other cultures in a way that in no way would I have ever experienced otherwise. And doing Embrace the Serpent, to your point, was me going there and being an observer of these indigenous cultures, observing the effect of
That's right.
religion in these cultures.
Yep.
Had had Spain come over and absorbed and utilized the best of those cultures, the best of the experiences that these people had, like healing remedies from plants, spiritual connectedness to earth, had we absorbed and appreciated and acknowledged and let them keep their languages and let them keep their experiences and shared in a common purpose and a common vision for the planet, as opposed to shutting them down, enslaving them, and forcing a religion on them, you know, which was all economical, right? It had no other purpose than the surface level of economics.
That's usually the way it goes down when things are coming from a selfish nature and they're coming from ego and they're driven by fear. It's always going to be the worst of humanity that comes shining for it. The analogy that I use in my studio all the time when I'm teaching is gold. And when you smelt gold, you put gold on the fire, all the impurities rise to the top, and you simply just get rid of all the impurities, and you have pure gold. And the more impurities you get rid of, it judges the 14 karat, 24 karat, and so forth and so
Mhm.
on. And the analogy is humanity is like that too. When humans are under pressure, like we all are now, all our impurities are going to rise to the top. What we do with the impurities is up to us. Are we going to just smelt them away and just shove them away and leave pure gold, our pure,
Yeah.
and that's what we're going through right now. All of our impurities are rising to the top, and what we do with that is up to us. Are we going to just
Oh, man.
show? Are we just going to show the world only our impurities for the rest of our existence, or are we going to get rid of our impurities and show the world our pure gold, our pure selves? And pressure does that. Pressure is a very important thing in nature. Pressure is a very important thing in humanity, in our hearts, in our souls. When we feel like we're under pressure, everyone thinks, oh, it's a bad thing. Oh my God, I got all this pressure and stuff like that. Well, that's where humans shine the
Yeah.
most. And that's a very important thing. And you're talking about leadership, you're talking about inspiration, you're talking about the whole purpose of doing this interview was to show the world how leadership and inspiration could change the world. Well, that's it right there.
Yeah.
I know people get tired, and I know people get frustrated, and I know people just want to be like, I'm out. And that's a very important thing too. You definitely need the release, spiritual release, a physical release, and so forth and so on. But at the same time, you have to understand that being a leader and inspiring other human beings and helping people change their lives for the better is something that you have to exist through. It's not going to happen on its own. You know what I mean? You have to really help people along the way.
And how you're being for them, you're being what's missing in their lives, you're being what is missing in the world. And when we look at these moments of pressure and these moments of experiencing quote unquote limitations, you get to ask yourself, what else is possible? Right? And how can I show up and be what's missing right now? And am I going to choose to be afraid? Am I going to choose to be annoyed? Am I going to choose to blame? Or am I going to choose to be generous? I'm going to choose to be in leadership. I'm going to choose to empathy. And you're exactly right. And right now, because of this quote unquote pressure, we have the opportunity to expand. Right? We have the
100%.
opportunity individually. And if everybody individually chooses expansion, possibility, and openness to what else is possible, then we get to evolve. And that gold, and I love that analogy, it's alchemy. That gold gets to be what society ultimately can be, right?
Well, the gold is already there. It just has a lot of impurities or baggage that goes along with it, and the baggage all comes from our ego, the fear, and under fear you have guilt, shame, and hatred and anger and all these negative forces that drive us. It all stems from fear, really. At the end of the day, the reason why people disagree with religions and or politics or whatever is because of fear. I'm afraid of you because you look different than I do. It's the same thing with race. You want to bring up race, it's the same thing. The reason why races are afraid of the reason why races don't get along is because they're afraid of each other. I simply don't understand you. And the reason why they don't understand each other is because they stopped listening to each other years ago. You know, and unfortunately, but it can change. It's actually way more simple than people think. It is just a matter of listening and saying, oh, wow, that person might look different than me. They might be a different color than me, but they're really not that different. Once I hear their story,
same thing.
Exactly.
We all want,
we're all going after the same thing.
We all want love. We all want community. We all want food, water, shelter. We all want to rise to our purpose. We all want to have some level of meaning and purpose in the world. We want relationships, sense of belonging, all the Maslow pyramid stuff. If you just look at that and you go, wow, those are the basic human needs, the physiological, all the way up to self-actualization. Those are the fundamental human desire points, right? And if you look at that, everybody on the globe has that, right?
Everybody, if you're a human being, you have that. When you went to the Amazon and you met real indigenous human beings that live there, you tell me, take away the language and you take away, you know, the clothes that they're wearing and all that stuff. Or what was so different? What was so different about them? Once you strip all that external stuff down, didn't you find that they were exactly the same as you? Like when it comes down to just the bare necessities?
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so we're back.
Before we move on, so Christina chimed in on Instagram saying that the opposite of fear is love. And I have the amazing privilege of having somebody in my life that shows me love every single day, not just shows me personally love, just exudes love.
Is. is. And she's generous, and you can always count on her to show up and just make you feel like you're the only person in the room,
Yeah.
and that you're the only person in the world that she loves.
Yeah. I
She
was going to
has
say,
that.
and for the last 3 weeks, I am the only person in the room. So yeah.
That's true.
And you know, there's a special place in heaven for her that has to not only deal with me for the last 15 years, but every second of every day for the last 3 weeks. And I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That being said, so there's a lot of things that I'm willing to talk about. I'm willing to talk about anything that I'm asked. I'm asked, you know, because if I'm going to teach communication and humanity and empathy, then and if I'm not an open book in my life, then I'm a hypocrite. So if there's anything else that you have in store and you want to ask me, just I'm here. That's why we're doing this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's guilty pleasure? We'll just dive right into that. Bring it up an element.
You know, there's a few, I have a few guilty pleasures. I don't really watch TV. The only TV show that I watch is the 80s sitcom Cheers, and I watch that every single day. But to be honest, I mean, to me, that seems normal. I wouldn't call that a guilty pleasure, because to me, that's like, it's obvious. What else am I going to watch? So, but I would definitely have to say my guilty pleasure, something that a lot of people don't know about me, unless you maybe have grown up with me, is the music that I listen to, particularly like love songs and sad songs, like really like Barry Manilow type of love songs, and these sad songs that sometimes you just like you just listen to Sade for 3 hours, because I want to just like remain in a certain state of mind and soul, and just, you know, in a little bit of a bad, maybe nostalgic, bad comma, nostalgic mood, and I just want to wallow in it for a little while. And if Barry Manilow is going to help me, then Sade is going to help me, or I mean, I could go on and on and on and list. But I would say that would probably be my guilty pleasure, only because it's something that I like to do alone. You know, I mean, I'll watch Cheers with anybody.
I love that show, man. I mean, I grew up on it. My dad and I watch it. It's a favorite pastime, and I loved it before. You know, I loved it before Kirstie Alley got on there, but after that, I was sold. She was brilliant on that show.
And it's also like the 80s. That's like the decade that I give my whole humanity credit for. And it's set in Boston. They show the Boston skyline in between, you know, thing. And it's just really special.
So Norm comes in, and two of my favorite quotes, you know, he always has a burner, right? He goes, they said, "Norm, how you doing, Norm?" "Oh, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear."
Very good, Brionne. Very good. You just went up a notch in my book.
And Norm, how's it going, Norm? Women, you can't live with them. Pass the beer nuts.
That's a good one too. And you didn't even misquote it too, because if you did, I would have jumped all over you. But you nailed it, man. You nailed it, man.
I've watched every episode probably at least 3 times.
Yeah. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a release. I think guilty pleasures are just personal releases that we have, escapism and things like that. Nothing to be ashamed of. It's just like, you know, the music that I listen to when I'm in certain moods. There's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. But I think everyone should have a guilty pleasure that belongs to them. Like, it just belongs to them. It belongs to me.
You know what? I tell you what, man. Anytime that I need inspiration, and I've looked for other sources that do the same thing for me. I'll either do a big search on Wagner, because I feel like that's a rise to the occasion. And hands down, every time I want to feel creatively empowered, this is my guilty pleasure, man. I go to YouTube and I play Madonna videos back to back to back.
All
But
right. Okay. Now the difference. All right. Can I just say something? The difference between me and you is I'm not going to put on a Barry Manilow wig, whereas you are more likely to put on a Madonna wig with the thing. See that? All right. Okay. Yeah. See. Now there's the difference right there. Now that's a guilty pleasure. If you're going to dress for the occasion, it never even occurred to me to do that.
I
And
don't
there's
feel guilty about that.
no, you don't have to feel guilty about it. I think you should be proud of that. I'm not willing to go to that next level. I'm
Yes,
not,
you are.
I'm not going to dress for the occasion, but maybe I should. Maybe I should. I don't know.
You would. All right. That's beautiful. So what prices have you paid to be where you are, Anthony? Let's move it along and then we'll wrap it up. What prices have you paid to be where you are?
Man, I mean, anytime you have a goal and you set forth with tunnel vision to achieve your goal, there's always going to be prices to pay. This is
Or
something
that you're willing to pay, right?
Yeah,
right.
that you're willing to pay. This is going to get deep, real deep. But it's all personal stuff and relationship stuff when it comes down to family. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where you don't have friends, you have family. You know, the guys you grow up with, the girls you grow up with, they're brothers, they're sisters, extension of your, immediate family. And to be able to put myself in a position that I put myself in to be successful here in this industry, 3,000 miles away from everything that I grew up with, missing birthdays and weddings and babies from my best friends, my brothers having children that I feel sometimes that I'm supposed to be there with and help raise and just watch them grow, and my niece and my nephew, and it's a huge price to pay. Now, I know that I could have both, so I'm not playing the victim here by no means. Am I saying that I'm trapped or I'm victimized by this? But missing a lot of things is a sacrifice that I made, and maybe I just simply didn't do as good of a job of having both. You get kind of into regrets, which I know was not the question that you asked me. But there's been emotional prices to pay when it comes down to the absence of family. I would say is the biggest one, the biggest price that I've paid.
And I love the way that you put that, and both are possible. You are living your truth, and you are also an example to your niece and nephews.
No doubt.
You are creating a both scenario, a both and scenario. And when we allow one or the other to take precedence, or we feel like there's a limitation, then we're not living in what's possible. So
and the prices that you pay, you really put on yourself, and it's I'm so far with my growth as a human being that I could turn around and just say everything that ever happened to me that seemed like a bad or a negative thing was a domino that I have knocked down, and I wasn't strong enough and brave enough to change the trajectory of where the way the dominoes are falling. So by no means am I saying that it's just too bad, poor me, I'm here and they're there. I think they're just lessons learned, but it was something when I originally moved out here that I was willing to sacrifice, and a price that I was willing to pay. I don't necessarily feel that way now. But to answer your question, it's something that comes up in my mind, in my soul every now and then.
When we're talking about lessons and license and prices to pay, it's in order for us to live our purpose, we get to be willing, or we need to be willing to pay a price for something, right? So when we did a Noble Exile, we were willing to pay the price of complete failure, that it was going to be the worst show in the world, or people were going to, it was literally in the bio at the very end was, this may be the biggest mistake in my life, but it's going to be a big, beautiful, amazing mistake, right? And that was the price that we were willing to pay to be a contributing factor to the art world. And those prices we may or may not have to pay. I mean, the price on the daily basis for an actor is you pay the price of rejection. You can pay the price of looking like an idiot. You can pay the price of failing. But if you're not willing to pay that price, you can't move forward. And other people that might be criticizing you are just wishing that they had the balls, the courage to do it. Right? And so you get to be an inspiration in the world. You get to be moving forward. You get to be willing to pay those prices. And you know what? Those prices pale in comparison to the accomplishment at the very end of a goal.
Well, a good way to put that is, I think of all the time, the price that I was not willing to pay was to live the rest of my life knowing that I didn't even try and I never taken a risk. That was
Beautiful.
A price that I was not willing to pay. And there's no way I was going to live, once I made up my mind, I wasn't going to live one more day with the possibility of paying that price. And as far as other people criticizing you and stuff like that, I know that that is something that really, really affects a lot of people. You just need to know that it's those kind of things have nothing to do with you. That is all on them. They are looking in the mirror. It's something that they are living with, and it's their thing. And when they're projecting it onto you, you can't take it personal. It's got nothing to do with you. It's all about them. The best thing to do, and I know this is a tough one, that's why I had that big, deep breath, is to reply and respond with love. And I know that's a tough one when somebody's criticizing you, to reply and respond with love. But love doesn't have to be like, oh, let me help you, because that's not always going to work. I mean, reality is reality. Love could just mean like,
I don't need to be right now.
Not respond. Yeah, exactly. Like not doing anything, not responding, not arguing, and just saying, that's your opinion or whatever. It's tough. It's tough to do. I'm not going to lie. It's tough to do.
But it gets easier the more you practice it.
100%. No, you're right. 100%. If you told me 10 years ago, responding with love to something that somebody is attacking you with criticism, then I would call you crazy. I'm not responding with love. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight. But it is not the answer, man. Yeah. It's not the answer. It's not, because now you're in a fight. Yeah. And you don't want to be. You really don't want to be engaged. Bruce Lee said it the best. It's the art of fighting without fighting. If you want to fight me and I fight you, you've already won. You already won. Even if I beat you or win an argument or whatever the case may be, you lost. You lost.
Really quick, 3 things. In advice, this is the protocol. 3 things, step 1, 2, 3, for artists, for humans, from your point of view, a leader in understanding of observation of the human condition, the man that you are, the life experience that you have, an interpreter of the human condition. 3 things. 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then bam.
Wow. Number 1 is listen, truly listen and empathize. Put your own ego off to the side and just listen to other people, and even more importantly, or just as importantly, listen to yourself.
Yes.
Take ego out of the equation. Another one would be to trust yourself. Just trust your own humanity. Trust the moments that have happened in your life that seem like they were very, very negative, and maybe they were at the time, that they could be lead to positive things. You just got to trust yourself and trust your humanity. And the other one is very simple, is to understand why the experiences happen to you. Don't let them affect you personally. Like, don't take it personally. And a lot of people use the word victimize and stuff like that. Okay, well, don't turn yourself into a victim. Just accept what happens to you. Just accept it. Like this thing that's going on with the crisis and the lockdown and all this stuff with the quarantine, accept it. And you can't fight it anyway. So stop fighting and accept it. So we have listening, trusting, and accepting. All right, those three good for you?
I love
Yeah.
that. So, all right. I think we've got a lot of people that have just really sent a lot of loving messages. I love what you mentioned about ego, true story. It's the triangle of self-obsession, fear, anger, and resentment. That's from North End Bostoner Tour. You know who that is?
North End Boston Tours, my friend Robert. Hey, man, how you
Hey,
doing?
Robert.
Hey, I miss you, man. How you
So,
guys holding up over there? Keep the faith.
Salty Toys. Me and Joy hung out with the whole cast. I guess she's talking about
Yes,
yeah.
those are my friends from way back, from back in
Oh,
the day. How you
nice.
doing, guys?
Sade, all-time classic. Awesome. So yeah, you guys, we're going to be doing these once a week. This video will be up on Anthony Gilardi's site, the Brionne Davis site, YouTube. It's going to be up in an edited version. I've also got one out with Jen D'Elia, who is an amazing filmmaker. My goal is to inspire. My goal is to share love, move beyond whatever might feel like a limitation for you right now. And Anthony is one of my best friends in the world. He's got a studio, Anthony Gilardi Acting Studio. We are completely online now. Anthony, how are you feeling about that? Do a shout out. Get in.
The online classes are amazing. It's just great practice, particularly for working actors that are going to have experience in on-set experiences where you have to stick a camera in your face. It is a little weird at first, but it's great training to move forward in your craft, and it's working out better than I could even imagine. And I imagine a lot.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. The community is amazing, and the online courses are you couldn't have asked for something better. Okay, love you guys. We're peacing out. If you got any questions for us, comment below.